Good morning and welcome to the COP27 side event, Combating Extreme Weather, Are Nature-Based Solutions Ready to Tackle the Challenge? My name is Bjørn Kalsnes. I'm working at the Climate Adaptation Group at Norwegian Geotechnical Institute in Oslo. And I'm part of the NGI coordination team for the Horizon 2020 EU-funded research project Physicals, which demonstrates how nature-based solutions provide robust, sustainable and cost-effective measures for reducing the risk of extreme weather events in rural mountain landscapes. This side event is organized by European Union with assistance from the project coordinators of the EU projects Operandum and Physicals. The European Union has during the recent years been a motor for research on the effect of nature-based solutions, especially on the connection between the biodiversity and climate crisis, highlighting the importance of working on the synergies between both fields. Next slide, please. Weather-related disasters, whether it be intense precipitation, droughts, floods, landslides, hurricanes, etc., have more than tripled since the 1960s, resulting in huge human and economic losses. Extreme events are likely to further increase in frequency and intensity with continued global warming, further affecting all sectors of the economy and the environment, changing food production and water management and producing poverty, especially in developing countries. Here are some photos that show some challenges we face in the Valley of Gudbrandsdalen in Norway, where we in Physicals implement nature-based solutions for reducing climate-related risks, such as floods. Next slide, please. Nature-based solutions are prominent in global agendas for climate and biodiversity, and recently an international agreed definition has been adopted. The fifth session of the United Nations Environment Assembly has made a resolution on adopting a multilaterally agreed definition of nature-based solutions, recognizing the important role they play in the global response to climate change and its social, economic, and environmental effects. It defines nature-based solutions as actions to protect, conserve, restore, sustainably use and manage natural or modified terrestrial, freshwater, coastal, and marine ecosystems, which address social, economic, and environmental challenges effectively and adaptively, while simultaneously providing human well-being, ecosystem services, resilience, and biodiversity benefits. The process of transforming nature-based solutions from small-scale interventions to large-scale landscapes and the subsequent policy to support this process remains a challenge, not in the least due to the space of the land area needed for these interventions, but also the necessary transitions in land area used to showcase nature-based solutions and their efficacy. This session will illustrate how the multiple benefits of nature-based solutions can be demonstrated at scale using worldwide nature-based solutions implementation case studies. It is an opportunity to share findings from a global effort to combat extreme weather through nature. Next slide, please. The side event contains 3 speakers followed by a short session with questions from the audience, where you can use the Slido. And it is my pleasure to introduce the speakers who are, the first is Professor Silvana Di Sabatino from the University of Bologna in Italy. She will talk about nature-based solutions for climate adaptation and mitigation with examples from the EU-funded projects Operandum and Physicals. The next one is Dr. Burton Sudell, a research biologist leading the risk integration team at US Army Research and Development Center. He will showcase practical experience implementing large-scale nature-based solutions to reduce climate risk from the United States and its territories. And the last speaker is Veronica Garcia Ruiz, project manager for the climate and disaster resilience at the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Her talk will focus on how interdisciplinary collaboration in different disciplines is essential to achieve good nature-based solutions. So I then first give the floor to the first speaker, Professor Sabatino. Professor Silvana Di Sabatino is a full professor of atmospheric physics at the Department of Physics and Astronomy of the University of Bologna. She holds a PhD from the University of Cambridge in environmental fluid mechanics. In the latest years, she has been working on nature-based solutions to promote the shift in standard engineering practices to combat hydrometeorological risks and evaluate co-benefits in the health domain. She's the coordinator of the Horizon 2020 project, Operandum, and the scientific coordinator of the new Green Deal EU projects, iChange. And she is the coordinator of the Horizon Euro project, Trigger. So please, Silvana.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and good morning to everyone. I'm very pleased to start my speech on natural-based solution and climate change. And I start by taking from what have just been mentioned, that the concept of natural-based solutions, although rather new in the literature in this form, it has taken an evolution. This concept has been in place for many years. In one of the recent papers that we have developed in a collaboration between Operandum, Reconnect, and Fusicos, that are the largest scale demonstration projects devoted to the co-design, the co-development, and implementation of natural-based solutions, we have highlighted that the term have evolved, but in our case and for our project, important has been the definition of the scales. As many of you have already heard during this meeting and during COP27, one of the challenge of implementing natural-based solution is trying to find some scientific evidence for their efficacy when we ask to our natural-based solutions to be able to mitigate hydrometeorological hazards. Next, please. In the process, what is important for the audience and for the many scientists, policymakers, is the availability of indicators and tools. The efficacy needs to be benchmarked together with the indicators and tools. What we have, first of all, we have one large effort that we have made, it has been made by the European Commission, is one of our handbook for practitioners. And in there, we highlight the importance of a methodology for monitoring as well as for the co-design and implementation. At the same time, there are available many platforms. The one you see on the right-hand side is a snapshot of our recent developed platform, that is the GeoEQP. This is a way of synthesizing and putting in one place all the data that are available to verify the efficacy. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so to go into some details, given the challenges, given that implementation of MBS require a scientific method to be implemented during and within our projects, Operandum, Fusicos, but also Reconnect, we have tried to develop also a concept that is an evolution of the Living Lab approach, that we call it open air laboratory. And then we try to systematize all the elements that allow scientists and policymakers to work together. This start from the definition of the climate data and the risk, and allow to follow a chain of processes that occur at the same time in order to allow replication and upscaling. So in this illustration, we can see that the MBS, that is the solution that we co-design to mitigate a specific risk, need to be embedded into a system of stakeholders that allow this MBS to be really implemented. But at the same time, we need to promote innovation as a mean also to facilitate uptake in the market. I will go and I will try to explain, yes, that's good, how this concept really feeds into existing initiatives, such as the one from the climate change services, but with respect to these initiatives that prescribe an approach that is top-down. By working with a natural-based solution, we promote a bottom-up approach. So it means that in being able to tackle with the hazard and the hydrometeorological risks, we use a simple equation, hazard by vulnerability and by exposure. This will be our risk, and our natural-based solution enters into the definition of vulnerability by reducing the vulnerability of the territories, but also reduce the exposure. Then again, into the frame of giving some general approach and methods, we need to customize and we need to generalize what can be done in any territory. And this applies to the way we set up the monitoring, the way we set up our numerical modeling, and these all both start from a paradigmic approach that has at the base the definition of those variables that allow through a series of steps to go to the performance indicator. One new element that we would like to share with the audience, and is some that we have been discussed among many scientists during 4 years of project, is that monitoring and modeling go hands in hands, cannot be demonstrated any efficacy if we don't continuously monitor our MBS through time. Next slide, please. We can see, we have seen so many can be made as examples of MBS. We remind that the challenge now is to take all these examples in one place or through our platform and connotate all these examples by data that can be used by different users. So data that refer to the monitoring, to the modeling, but also to the action of stakeholder engagement, and also that also contain availability of permitting paths as well as a recommendation for further uptake. Next slide, please. So going back to the evidence building, one element I would like to convey with you, that is that the evidence should follow a scientific approach. So this means, this is an example from the river flooding in Panaro River, that is one of the tributary of the Po River, one of the largest in Italy. And the natural-based solution in this case is the introduction of deep root plants on the riverbank as opposite to the reinforcement of the riverbank made by concrete. Next slide, please. Another example also from Italy is that natural-based solutions have been co-designed and also implemented through the help of stakeholders in mitigating the poor water quality that this lake, the Lake Massachusetts, I should be able to pronounce, is experiencing. And this lake, as many lakes in Italy, but in many European countries, especially in the south, are embedded into a large system of agriculture. So by retaking the lake to the original purity of water, has been many actions have been made that allow also the agriculture to benefit from a new way of doing farming. This is one of the largest experience in the Fusikos project, and that demonstrated all the elements that I have mentioned so far. We need the stakeholder, we need understanding of how the whole system works, and at the same time have the continuous monitoring, as in fact these sites also have an observatory that constantly look at the purity of water and the improvement of that. Next slide, please. But as I mentioned, the co-design, we have heard probably this many times. Here again, the examples, only two elements I would like to share. First of all, that when we talk about stakeholder engagement, we need to embed into a laboratory setting where scientists and also policymakers or facilitator of the implementation work together, essentially into make this model more efficient is the role that the community does in the formation of with respect to natural-based solutions, and also the education in the lab. Next slide, please. Going back to the examples, this is how it look like when we talk about those buffer strips. It means that they are buffer strips embedded into the agricultural land, but in such a way that a communication is made by nature and different other areas of the territory that may be devoted to other means. These are example, prototype of how we can go towards sustainable agriculture, even in the challenge of the drought that we know will be even more exacerbated in the future years due to climate change. So please refer to our projects.
Siobhan, can you start summing up now, please?
Yes. Okay. Okay, we can move quickly then. Innovation is an element that, as I said, facilitated uptake. Next slide, please. The laboratory testing, again, to verify the scientific finding. Next slide, please. And another example that I would like to share with you is that when we talk about climate change and hydrometeorological risk, we should not forget the coastline, we should not forget also coastal erosion and so forth. And one of the examples that we have made in Operando has been the build of the dune as a vegetative dune that allow also two certain examples for numerical modeling and then for the generalization of of the findings. As I said, the MBS that we implement, usually they are not alone. We work in synergy with others, and we could also furnish details for future years by introducing climate change in our modeling. And I hope that I will complete with this message. Please look up at our project and our examples in more detail. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Silvana, for this glimpse into the project that you are working with. I just mentioned again that you are all invited to ask questions through the Slido, which you can get access to through the web portal by either using the QR code or by using the website. Please use the Slido. And we come back to the questions and answers at the end of this session. So the next speaker is Dr. Burton Sudell, who is a research biologist in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Environmental Laboratory in Vicksburg, Mississippi. He obtained his PhD in biological sciences from the University of Mississippi. His primary research investigates how environmental, social, and economic benefits can be designed and incorporated into coastal and fluvial infrastructure planning. Dr. Sudell has received international awards and recognition for applying nature-based solutions at multiple freshwater and coastal marine projects. So the floor is yours, Burton, please.
Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this very important session. And I think the topic is very important, very topical, very timely as we consider and continue to be ravaged by climate change related events, particularly here in the United States, where we had landfall for another named storm just yesterday. And in other parts of the country, we continue to be ravaged by other aspects of climate change, including large-scale drought. And so what I'm going to be here today is talk to you about how within the United States, the Army Corps of Engineers is promoting and upscaling nature-based solutions for addressing climate risk. Really addressing that question, are we ready to take on extreme weather with nature-based solutions? And I think the answer sometimes the answer is yes. So let's look at how we are doing that here in the United States. Okay, next slide. On the nature-based solutions, oh, we skipped a slide. Can we go back? Can we, in the United States, nature-based solutions, we are addressing those through an initiative in the Army Corps of Engineers called Engineering with Nature. The definition of engineering with nature that you see here, I'm going to go ahead and read it to you because I think it's very, very important. It's the intentional alignment of natural and engineering processes to efficiently and sustainably deliver economic, environmental, and social benefits through collaboration. If you ask yourself the question, does my project, is it consistent with engineering with nature? I would say, take a look at those 4 key elements there on the left-hand side. If your project is consistent and addresses those 4 key elements, then I would say that your project is consistent then with implementing engineering with nature principles in practice. What's important for us, I think, from an organizational perspective, is the Engineering with Nature initiative, and now a congressionally funded program has received support to the highest levels of the U.S. government. Okay, next slide. I think there are a lot of opportunities when we really look at climate and natural disasters, certainly within the United States. If we look, for example, at the illustration at the bottom of this slide, as we go landward from right to left, there are many opportunities to incorporate nature-based solutions into measures where we would reduce flood risk, where we would try to increase resilience of our infrastructure, increase that resilience of the communities that rely on that infrastructure for safety, including all those measures you see on the right-hand side, but also including flood walls and even drainage improvements. So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, for incorporating engineering with nature in practice. Okay, next slide. What I'd like to share with you is just a few projects where we are incorporating engineering with nature, particularly at larger scales within the United States, that really crosses a lot of the natural disasters and extreme events that we're experiencing here in this country. So one example of that are large-scale wildfires. Large-scale wildfires are ravaging thousands of hectares of land in the United States. And sometimes that will ravage, for example, a large swaths of land in some of our tribal nations. So just a decade ago, one of the largest wildfires in New Mexico state history ravaged much of the land of the Santa Clara Pueblo. And so we work very, very closely with them, integrating traditional ecological knowledge about the flood history, the wildlife migrations, and historical vegetation occurrence to build into those solutions the cultural things that is important to the Pueblo, such that we can include low cost and readily available materials. This can include logs, mulch, vegetation, and even including local rock to stabilize highly erodible soils. If you can imagine, large-scale wildfires denudes that landscape and really makes the land much more susceptible to large-scale erosion, like, for example, that you see there in the upper photograph. And so we work very closely with the Pueblo to identify how we might design those structures to use readily available materials to help reduce erosion post-wildfire at a large scale, to include, for example, literally thousands of structures. The two structures that you see there, they're on the right-hand side. On the bottom right, you can see how some of those structures are actually being implemented successfully in practice, reducing erosion where they are. Okay, next slide. Another important aspect within the United States are our coastal islands. This particular island is on the Gulf Coast. This is actually near my home state of Mississippi. But these coastal islands, as important as they are being ravaged by, for example, named storms. One in particular would be Hurricane Katrina back in 2005. They are greatly reducing the island's mass. And so when that happens, you're losing a lot of those benefits associated with those islands. The forests are being destroyed, you're eroding the shoreline, and the elevations are being reduced such that they no longer support marsh vegetation. So one of the ways in which we can rebuild and restore those islands at a large scale is to use dredge material from local navigation channels. One of our primary missions within the Army Corps of Engineers is to maintain safe navigability of our nation's waterways. And so what do we do with that material that we remove from the channel? One way we can do that is to beneficially use it. And so this example here on Deer Island gives you a sense of how on a fairly large scale, we can restore a lot of the features and a lot of benefits associated with those islands, whether they be flood risk management, ecosystem restoration, improving coastal resiliency, and of course, including the resiliency of the landscape itself. Okay, next slide. Another important area that we're working in the United States includes coastal wetlands. Another example of a large-scale disaster occurred a few years ago during Hurricane Sandy. It created a lot of problems. It created a lot of damage to our infrastructure and to other parts of that, particularly close to the coast of the United States. We had already started a conversation about how we can improve the resiliency and restore some of that habitat in New Jersey back bays. But that's named storm like Superstorm Sandy, that's going to change. That's going to accelerate that conversation and get things moving. We've progressed through piloting fairly small scale projects, like the one you see in the middle bottom, asking ourselves questions. Can we use dredge material out of the Federal Navigation Channel to restore the features and the benefits associated with those wetlands in the Back Bay region? That's been so successful. We are now then in full-scale implementation in this 7 Mile Island Innovation Laboratory. And what makes this work too is how highly collaborative it is, as you can see by evidenced by the logos in the bottom right hand corner of the slide. Okay, next slide, please. So that gives you some examples of evidence. What's very important for us too is how are we fostering adaptation of engineering with nature and nature-based solutions in the United States? Well, we need guidance, we need standards, and we need evidence. And so it's not just us and others are developing this guidance and this evidence. And some of the examples that you see here are some of the covers of the reports that we and others have been publishing in this space. We need to have that guidance and that evidence to help understand how nature-based solutions can be designed and implemented in practice. What's important to us too, particularly from a research and development perspective, we have to consider also other ways of effectively communicating engineering with nature in practice. And sometimes we have to get away from those technical documents. And so, for example, here at the bottom, we have now started our 5th year of Engineering with Nature podcast. It's not just us talking, we're reaching out broadly across the United States. How people in their day jobs are incorporating nature-based solutions into creating long-lasting solutions for the work that they do. Okay, next slide. The most important guidelines document that we have published in our 12 years as an initiative in the Army Corps of Engineers is the International Guidelines on Natural Nature-Based Features for Flood Risk Management. Over 1,000 pages over 5 years, involving more than 70 multi-sector organizations and more than 170 authors and contributors developed this 20 chapters that you see there on the left-hand side to include, for example, marine coastal environments, fluvial environments inland, to include, for example, features such as beaches and dunes, coastal wetlands, islands, reefs, plant systems, and including, for example, how we can enhance existing infrastructure. And so you can go to the Engineering with Nature website and download your own e-copy of these guidelines if you want to. Okay, next slide. Getting back to this idea that sometimes we have to get away from technical documents to effectively communicate, what's really important too sometimes is you need to get out of that comfort zone. So it gets to the point where you go beyond even those podcasts and develop actually coffee table books. And so we have published 2 Engineering with Nature atlases. First, on the right-hand side, left-hand side, volume 1, published in 2018, and then volume 2 in 2021. A total of almost 120 projects inside and outside the United States, within the Army Corps of Engineers and outside the Army Corps of Engineers, how we are implementing engineering with nature and by design nature-based solutions in practice. This includes many projects from around the world, including several from Europe. And so sometimes when you have to effectively communicate, you need to actually give people information in ways that are really non-traditional to effectively communicate how nature-based solutions are working in practice. Okay, next slide. I've got a few observations.
Start summing up you also, Burton, please.
Yes, absolutely. There's some overarching observations I'd like to share with you today. I'm going to focus just on the second and third bullets. I think what's important and I think relevant to this particular session is for us to be fully successful from a flood risk management perspective. Our systems are related to scale. We need to upscale nature-based solutions, and we're doing that in the United States in many areas. Sustainable flood risk management systems also include a combination of conventional infrastructure. What I mean by that, infrastructure made out of concrete, out of steel, out of large rock. To also include natural and nature-based elements. Okay, next slide. I think what we want to do is look at nature as a full spectrum. On the left-hand side, you've got the wild and free-flowing nature. For example, those 2 watersheds on the west coast of the United States. A couple hundred years ago, what do those same watersheds look like now? They're tamed and conquered nature, okay? There's a lot of human engineering going on there. The idea is it's not either or, but and. I think we have the combination of the structural versus the natural. And I think by doing that, I think that's going to promote more lasting, sustainable, and resilient systems for the world. Okay, this last slide. Bjorn, I just got one more minute here that I'd like to share, and I think we have touched on this earlier in COP27, but I'd like to share it just for a moment here as well. The United States White House did publish a report 3 days ago on nature-based solutions. This included the White House Council on Environmental Quality, worked across federal government agencies, including the Army Corps of Engineers and the Engineering with Nature program, to develop and publish a report that identifies opportunities to accelerate the implementation of nature-based solutions in the United States. The title of that report is Opportunities to Accelerate Nature-Based Solutions, a roadmap for climate progress, thriving nature, equity, and prosperity. So the report provides a roadmap of 5 strategic recommendations from the U.S. federal perspective to unlock the potential of incorporating nature-based solutions into our infrastructure projects in the United States. You can certainly Google that online, but if you go to the Engineering with Nature website on our news page, you will find it there as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Burton, for sharing experience from an American perspective, and also for sharing your information about the roadmap given by the US. The last speaker is Veronica Garcia Ruiz, who over the past 10 years has worked in incorporating into nature, into the disaster risk reduction and climate adaptation plans and strategy through her work in different international organizations. As a disasters and climate resilience manager in IUCN, Veronica supports the global work on nature-based solutions by facilitating collaborations plus trusted partnership building. So please, this last presentation now is Veronica, please.
Thank you so much. So if you can please go through the slide, thank you. So we have been talking about that we work in multiple landscapes. We go from urban landscape to natural landscape, going through a whole range of ecosystems. We go through wetlands, drylands, mountains, etc. And working not only at multiple landscapes, but also we work at multiple contexts. And what do I mean about context? So we work with multiple actors. We work at the policy level, policy actors, decision makers. We also work at the practical level. So we work with the practitioners, the people that we are really going into the ground, project managers, and so on. But also we work with scientists. We bring the science. We have Silvana, who started with her presentation, bringing these more science-focused components. But also because we are working on multiple landscape and multiple contexts, we have to think about like what we need to scale up and to move forward nature solutions. And for this, there are multiple, let's say, factors that can help on this. We have the policy willingness, we have funding availability, but also we need to come up with what Barton said, we need to come up with real cases, we need to come with science, and we need to come also with standards. Next slide. So when we talk about like, what are the can you click again, please? Thank you. So when we talk about all this diversity and complexity of actors, of landscape, etc., we have to think about like, what are the challenges that we are facing? If we think about now the context we are in this presentation, we are thinking about like how we tackle climate change and what are the solutions that we can use for tackling climate change. There are multiple solutions. In some contexts, we have to come up with concrete, with traditional engineering solutions, but we have seen that nature-based solutions can really provide a context, a solution for tackling climate change in different contexts. And this you can see also like the beauty of like nature-based solutions can bring together all these multiple actors, because nature-based solutions, as per their nature, they are already complex. And by nature, they are already bringing together all these multiple actors that we need to bring together to tackle those challenges. And this is one of the things you can see in the coming days, talking more and more into nature-based solutions and how we come to come together on a partnership that really tackles biodiversity, but also climate change together. And you will hear more on the 16th of November with the launch of the COP27 Presidency Partnership on Nature-Based Solutions. Next slide. But I would like to emphasize what Barton says. He said, like, we need guidance, we need case studies, but we need standards as well. And one of the major milestones that IUCN work on is on launching the first ever standard on nature-based solutions. This standard offers a clear and practical guidance that will help with implementation first, and secondly, to provide a non-rigid threshold system that can help in designing a solution, but also can support decision-making for investment and financing, but also to inform the scaling up of impact. This has been our work during 2 years with more than 800 actors coming from countries worldwide, but also bringing together all the different geographies and bringing together multiple challenges. Next slide. And as I say, bringing multiple partners together, multiple actors together. And you may think like, well, but this is normal. This is not our day-to-day life, how we work. But this is not that normal because sometimes we use completely different languages to talk about the same issue. And I would like to give you the example of this project that I will present to you that has been a clear success of how partners coming from completely different sectors can work together on tackling a same challenge. In this case, droughts and flood challenges in West Africa within the context of the Volta Basin. And the project you can see here in the screen is the Volta Flood and Drought Management Project, which has the ambition to provide the first large-scale and transboundary implementation of integrated flood and drought management strategies. So this is a project that is coordinated together as a partner, as a consortium by the World Meteorological Organizations, the Volta Basin Authority, and the Global Partnership for Water. But the three of them, in a spirit of really tackling climate change on a holistic and integrative approach, brought together different actors, including IUCN. And why was this? It was for including nature more prominently in the management of drought and flood. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, this project based in 3 main components. So we have risk prevention. So how we can bring nature into risk prevention? When we think about ecosystem services, nature is the provider of ecosystem services. So when we work on disaster risk management, first thing we have to think like, what is the role of nature? Whether we know what could be the different climate scenarios, we have to also think about like how nature and biodiversity loss can even cause a higher negative impact of climate change. But also, how can we bring nature into these more long-term and sustainable risk prevention plans? And secondly, we have the component which is more about concrete attention and stakeholder engagement. Nature-based solutions, as I say, can bring all these actors together. How we tackle climate change? We cannot do it on a siloed base. We only work with disaster risk managers, or we work with engineers, or we work from the finance sector. We need to all sit together and discuss how this is affecting the multiple beneficiaries and the multiple groups that are part of a landscape. And third, the most important, we have the science here, we have the stakeholder coming together partnerships, but also we need the governance and the policy. We need to scale up nature-based solutions, but also we need a policy outtake to make sure that whatever is decided or implemented through projects is also being taken at the policy level. But obviously for this, nature-based solution is something new for many people. So we need to build capacities. We need to start from zero and to be able to really to deliver the right message for convincing that there is a time for nature is now. Whether you want to take the action now or whether maybe we won't have time in the coming years. Next slide, please. So this is just a little bit of to show you one few of the activities that the project has been running on, working really with local communities. What are the real needs for communities? How we can do this risk mapping with them, but considering not only data, the scientific data or hydrometeorological information, but also what is the environmental information that we have to bring into the equation. That is very important to then being able to develop these sustainable and long-term risk management plans. We have run plenty of capacity building trainings on nature-based solutions from policy to the practical level. And now we are moving towards and see like, how can this be integrated at the policy level, whether at the regional level, whether at the basin level, or whether at the national level. Next slide. And this is the, let's say, the most tangible results of this project that really showcase the importance of diverse and collaborative participatory partnerships. Under the framework of this project, a basin-wide early warning system was created, and this is a very diverse early warning system that has been developed by the CIMA Foundation, an Italian research institution. And this early warning system is bringing, like, let's say, like a business as usual kind of information, rain, temperature, etc. But also there are numbers of different layers in terms of environment. What about ecosystem health? What are the species that are in there? What are the different multiple threats? So then to be able to come up with more informed decisions in terms of risk management. So I will stop here, but for sure, if you have any question about this project, I'm happy to share more information for sure about nature-based solutions as well.
Thank you very much, Veronica, and thank you all for these splendid presentations. I think it was very interesting to, one sentence I made note of, Veronica, is that you said, time for nature is now. And I think that summarizes very much the challenge that we have to introduce NBS in all type of actions in the present world. And now we're starting the questions and answer session. And I think I will start to you, Veronica. In fact, the first question to you is, and the question is, if the opportunities and benefits for using nature to address climate-related risks are so clear, what is hindering larger uptake of nature-based solutions for disaster risk reduction?
This is an excellent question, I have to say. And maybe I'm putting all of this on my back, but I have to say, like, when we talk about nature-based solutions, and based on my experience, I have the chance to have been working with colleagues worldwide, nature-based solutions is the to-go solution, right? But we have to think about it in some cases, in some scenarios, nature-based solution is not enough. So that's why I find like there is a sort of a pushback, which is much easier to have a first pushback than say like, well, we can move forward. And I think one of the pushback for the uptake of nature-based solutions in disaster risk reduction context is still the belief that the engineering traditional solutions are the one that will solve the issue. But in some cases, yes, there is such a scenario that we cannot do anything with nature because nature literally is not even in there. But that's why I have to think like one of the things like is the matter is like the belief that concrete solutions are the first one and nature is always relegated into a secondary plan. So I think this is the major challenge, and for that we really need to come up with the information, right? Like Barton was saying, like, we need the guidance, we need to have the evidence, so then to convince these people that are still living nature-based solution at the secondary plan.
Thank you, Veronica. My next question is, I think it goes to Silvana, in fact, because we both face these problems with time in our research projects. And the question is as follows: nature-based solutions require time to implement and start getting results and require continuous monitoring and engagement, which needs more funds and resources that are not available most of the time. In your experience, and that's your experience, Silvana, what would be the best strategy to tackle this issue? It's a complicated question, but you're the one.
I do my best, and this is an important question. Important question from the planning point of view, but also in terms of the results that we obtain during the lifespan of the project. So my suggestion, and what has been successful in both Operandum and also Fusicus, is to have an idea before the start of the proposal, and have already at least identified the hazard in our case, and also the stakeholders that may be interested into following up. So this is a strategic. So not, although the co-design allow to target one solution or another, but the most of the work and the engagement somehow should be done prior the proposal in the proposal phase, the proposal writing phase. And another aspect that, in my view, allow to still obtain results during the lifespan is identify those solutions that may require less timings, and go for protocols or prototypes. This means also that one focus on those that can be in a way monitored or reproduced in the laboratory, and this is a kind of benchmark for further uptake. So the solution is not to point, on one NBS, but on many at the same time.
Thank you, Silvana. Then I have two questions, one very concrete and one more conceptual to Burton. And the first one is related to the funding of the projects that you are. Where are the funding coming from? That's the first question. But the other one is more conceptual. And often a lack of proof of concept is brought forward by actors not to implement such solutions. How can we overcome this skepticism and show that NBS solutions are working? You have to comply now. Why are people skeptic, and how should we address this skepticism?
Oh, great two questions. Funding is a great question. I work for a federal government agency, so that increased funding through the United States Congress is really game-changing, if you will, including that large infrastructure bill that was passed in the United States just last year, provides infrastructure funding to incorporate nature-based solutions into our infrastructure projects around the United States, and provides funding to several of our federal agencies that allow us then to implement nature-based solutions in practice, and really encourages us, because a lot of these solutions, and I know the other speakers can appreciate this, these are complex problems requiring multidisciplinary solutions. And so we need people to work together. And the best way to do that is for people to work together across agencies, across disciplines, to solve these problems. I think the biggest thing, Bjorn, is one word, and I think that word is awareness. That's probably the biggest word. Awareness has to be internal, including in the large organization that I work for. The Army Corps of Engineers is the largest engineering organization in the world. We've got 38,000 people. And so not everyone has bought into this idea of incorporating nature-based solutions. then into our infrastructure projects. So the awareness then is important to increase within our organization. That's where I come in from our research and development perspective, but also our sponsors, our partners, our stakeholders. That awareness is also very important. And it's examples like this communications like we're doing today increases that awareness. And so what's happening a lot of times, our sponsors that are in the backyard of our infrastructure project are demanding nature-based solutions be included in these projects. So I think it comes down then to that one word, and that one word is awareness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Burton. It's interesting what you say. And to follow up the description that you gave, I have a question to Veronica, which is more in the same line. What is the role that NBS can play in creating new partnership for tackling climate change?
So I think also in a certain way, Barton, he already responded also to this question. No? So nature-based solutions are multidisciplinary. So if we want to work on a nature-based solution context, then we really need to bring together different actors from different sectors. When we talk nature-based solution, has to be cost-effective. We need to work also with the finance. We cannot avoid, even though myself, I work from the conservation, we need to work with the finance actors. We need to work with actors working more on the social level. We have to work on governance, so people working more at the governance level. So nature-based solutions, they provide this enabling environment for all these actors to come together and work together towards tackling a challenge. So I would say like nature-based solutions per nature, they are the motor for bringing together all these actors and really building up a strong and trustful partnerships.
Thank you, Veronica. I think all of you, you stated that the challenge related to guidelines, to evidence, and to other standards, this kind of thing, that is a challenge for implementing nature-based solutions. But I have a question to Silvana now. What are the challenges you feel are associated to NBS uptake and upscaling? Because we can show it in a small scale, but when you need upscaling, what is the challenges?
Yeah, you already kind of hinted to the answer. Most often, NBS are being designed for a very small scale. So the challenge is, of course, the availability of land for really being effective. So upscaling takes with it the fact that those solutions will be effective. So if we are dealing with others that are at basin level or large territories, of course, small implementation will not solve the problem. So this is one of the challenges, and are, let's say, territorial challenges. So how do we overcome? We overcome by imagining solutions as, for instance, a cluster of MBS, multiple MBS that can work in synergies. And the scientific evidence I have been talking to in my talk, and the experience of our projects has allowed to also the scientists to work with the stakeholder to find solutions that can reach that level of robustness that the typical engineering solutions have nowadays. So we have to be creative in a way of taking as the norm the fact that we don't have much territories available, especially in many crowded countries. So this is for sure something that we need to tackle probably in a future projection, in future projects, and being tackled properly. Yeah.
Thank you. Now we just have 1 minute left, so I will just thank you all, both speakers, which gave excellent speaks, and also the answers and discussion in the following up of the presentations, but also to all the people that have been looking at for this this session related to nature-based solutions. So I would thank on behalf of the program committee for the hour that you have used here. I think we have learned quite a lot, and I wish you a good luck with the rest of the COP27 and a nice weekend. Thank you very much.